Hello everybody, and welcome to the team edition of my preseason power rankings for the North American LCS. So much like with my player positional rankings, my team rankings operate on a points-based system, where I attempt to rank the teams on the various factors that go into making a successful team. While the player rankings were more focused around the level of individual performance I thought the player would show, the team rankings try to factor in all the aspects that make a winning team, which is a much more holistic view of the team as opposed to just taking the 5 individual players and sticking them on a team. So I scaled the final totals by 10 over 11.215 and rounded them to the nearest 0.25 to make the mean final score equal to 10. So if your team's score is 10 points, that means you're average, okay? So moving into the factors that we have, the factors we have are player rating, which is the mean of the 5 scores given to the members of the team. So I take the top score that I gave them on my top lane power rankings, the jungle score, the mid score, ADC score, and support score, add them together and divide by 5, so just to take the average ranking of the players that I gave. And for the factors, as a large factor, we have player styles, which is how well the ideal styles of the individual team members mesh with one another and how effectively those individual styles combine into a successful team style. So you need a good balance in terms of who wants how much resources, who wants how much focus, and to try to balance it into what should hopefully make a successful team. And the other factor that I have as a large factor is coaching, which is how well the members of the coaching staff are able to assist the players in ways that better the team's ability to succeed. As medium factors, I have communication, which is how well are the members of the team able to pass information and ideas between each other to figure out and execute the ideal course of action. So sort of how on the same page they are, as well as are they doing the right thing? Are they communicating what the information that they have that other people might have to one another? And as the other medium factor, I have clutchness, which is how well the members of the team are able to elevate their level of play to help swing an important match. So like some players step up when it's a big game, some players kind of step down. Do they let the pressure get to them, or do they let them motivate them? That's kind of what that's about. For small factors, I just have one, and it's experience, which is how familiar are the members of the team to the challenges faced by a professional League of Legends team on a weekly, daily, yearly basis. So obviously there are going to be hurdles you have to overcome, you're going to go through downs in the season, you're going to go through struggles, or just tasks you have to do and overcome, and the more experienced you are, the more used to them you are, and the easier you're able to get through them. Okay? So moving into the rankings, in 10th place we have OpTic Gaming with a score of 3.75 points. So OpTic's roster going into 2019 is Dokla in the top lane, Meteos in the jungle, Crown at mid, Arrow at AD, and Big at support. I've also put in brackets the players that I think might also play a game, even if they're not the players you look at as the starters. And for OpTic, I have Dardoch in the jungle, and Asta is actually going to be playing the first games for OpTic, so I decided to put him in there. So as far as I'm concerned, OpTic has an okay mix of different player styles. They should look to use their strong jungle mid to take control of the side lanes. Their coach is Zabutian, who was the coach of the team last year. He hasn't really done a lot, that's his only experience, so he's yet to really show success. Maybe he'll be good though. They have no obvious strong voices except for perhaps in the jungle. They might struggle to establish good communication without Power of Evil, who I know played somewhat of a decent role in their communication last year, and now he's not on the team this year. Some players have found individual success in the past, though a long time ago. You know, looking at Crown, obviously, being the big one, but also Arrow, and I mean, even Meteos. But the team as a whole failed to show up in the big games last year, and they have a lot of the same members this year as they did last year. So I'm not too confident that's going to change. As a fun fact, they had the least kills with 151, and the least deaths with 176 of any team in the LCS last summer, so they didn't play games with a lot of kills. So, coming in, they had a player rating of 4.1. I gave them 0.5 for player styles, minus 0.5 for coaching, 0 for communication, 0 for clutchness, 0.25 for experience with no bonus, which brought their total to 3.75. So, moving into 9th place, we have Echo Fox with 4.75 points. Echo Fox has Solo in the top lane, Rush in the jungle, Phoenix at mid, Apollo at AD carry, and Hakuo at support, with Lorlo also potentially playing some games top lane. Now they have a good mix of supportive players with Solo and Apollo, and carry players with Rush and Phoenix. I think Rush's performance will be a huge indicator of Echo Fox's success. Their coach is Song, who's very experienced and has had success on multiple teams. He's known more for his strategic mind than anything else, so perhaps he's not the sort of full package of a coach, but I think he can still be decent. They could struggle with communication as they have no well-known shot caller and a mix of Koreans and Americans. So how well are Rush and Phoenix going to be able to communicate with the rest of the members of the team? Who's going to be making the calls? I'm not really sure. I think it leaves a lot to be seen. Nobody on the team really has much experience with winning. Most of them have played for a while, though. Their only really new player is Solo, and the others have played for quite a few years, but they haven't won anything, so I'm not really, like, they have experience, but it's not good experience. And as a fun fact, they acquired 3 players from OpTic Gaming, Solo, Apollo, and Hakuo, which was the team with the worst goal differential at 15, with minus 593 last summer. So Echo Fox had a base player rating of 4.4. I gave them a player styles of 1, coaching of 0.5, communication of 0, clutchness of 0, experience of 0. I took away 0.5 points as a bonus, which brought their total to 4.75. Moving into 8th place, we have FlyQuest with 6 points. Now, FlyQuest has a roster of Viper, top, Santorin jungle, Pobelter mid, Wild Turtle AD, and JJ support. They have a good mix of aggressive players with Wild Turtle and Viper, and supportive players with Santorin and Pobelter. Their actual player strength may hold them back. I think they have a lot of players who should do decently, but they don't really have any superstars or any studs, so I think against some teams they might get rolled over in certain positions, or they might not be able to just generate that pressure. Their coach is Invert, who was their academy coach last year. I don't know anything about him, so I can't really judge him. With 3 past NALCS champions in Santorin, Pobelter, and Wild Turtle, FlyQuest should be able to find some decent communication and experience off the bat, though probably nothing at the same level as teams that have more experience playing with one another. No one on the team has a big history of stepping up in important games, except I guess Wild Turtle. The rest haven't really been known to carry their team through tough situations, but perhaps they will. As far as I'm concerned, they're kind of the baseline for an LCS caliber team, because I don't think there's any of their players that aren't LCS level, except maybe Viper, we'll see. And I think that all of them are decent, but not great, and they have an okay mix of player styles, so I think they're kind of a good indicator. If you're as good as FlyQuest, you're probably a solid LCS team. If you're worse than FlyQuest, you probably have some work to be done. As a fun fact, FlyQuest had the second shortest average game time with 32.7 minutes of teams in the LCS last summer, so they like to play fast. I gave them a player rating of 4.8, a player styles of 1, coaching of 0, communication of 0.5, clutchness of 0, experience of 0.5, and no bonus, which brought their total to 6 points, which was good for 8th place. Coming in at 7th place, we have OpTic Gaming with 6.5 points. OpTic Gaming's roster is Huni in the top lane, Lyra at jungle, Demonte at mid, Piglet at AD carry, and Vulcan at support. They also have Cody Sun at AD carry. I don't know if they plan on playing him at all, but I think if Piglet's not playing well, he might get some time. They have a very clear high resource, high focus players in Huni and Piglet, and low resource, low focus players in Lyra and Demonte. So it's the most obvious sort of mix of styles, which I think should work in their favor. Both Huni and Piglet have shown an excellent ability to carry at times, and both Lyra and Demonte are also pretty good supportive players in their position. The coach is MCS Craig, I assume is how you say that, I don't really know. He was the academy coach last year, much like FlyQuest coach, and I also don't know anything about him. Huni, Lyra, and Piglet should be able to get on the same page when it comes to communication. However, we'll see whether the language barrier between them and Demonte and Vulcan causes problems. All of Huni, Lyra, and Piglet are Korean, and they've all had some decent success in the past and been on quite a few different teams, so I think they should be able to find some pretty immediate communication synergy with one another. However, I'm not sure if that will exist team-wide or not. Piglet and Huni are very experienced and have stepped up in important games in the past, but nobody on the team has stepped up in big games recently. I mean, Huni on both Echo Fox and when he was on Immortals was sort of more known for blowing some series, and Piglet didn't even get a chance to make it into playoffs. The others didn't really get a chance to do anything. So they definitely have experience, but they haven't shown an ability to use it to their advantage recently. I deducted a half point as I think the strong personalities of Huni and Piglet may clash at times, which would severely hinder their level of play. Huni is a very sort of bold personality. He's a very big personality. I think that maybe could have the tendency to grate on people, and Piglet seems like someone who can get emotionally affected pretty heavily. So I think if things start going bad, it could look bad for them. So I gave them a player rating of 4.55, player style of 2, coaching of 0, communication of 0.5, clutchness of 0.5, experience of 0.25, and a bonus of minus 0.5, which brought the total to 6.5 points, which was good enough for 7th place, but not quite good enough to crack the metaphorical playoffs. Coming in at 6th place, we have Golden Guardians at 8 points. Golden Guardians has a roster of Hauntzer in the top lane, Contracts in the jungle, Froggen at mid, Deftly at AD carry, and Ole at support. I don't really expect them to use any of their subs super heavily. While they are one of the strongest rosters on paper in terms of individual strength of player, every player on the team has succeeded best in a more greedy role in the past, more focused on their lane than others, so balancing who gets what resources and attention may be a challenge. I think there are certainly some of the players who can play to other lanes. I don't think Froggen's a bad roamer. I think Contracts is pretty good at ganking, so we'll see how it goes, but all the players on the team have sort of functioned better as more lane bully players, as more sort of high resource players, and so it'll be interesting to see how it combines together. The coach is Aniro. I think Aniro made the most of what he had to work with in Echo Fox. While still somewhat unproven, I think he could be a solid coach for Golden Guardians this year, as he showed a decent amount in the limited experience he has had. Hauntzer, Froggen, and Ole provide a wide range of experience and have for the most part stepped up in big games fairly consistently. I think all of them in the bigger games, in the important matches, have shown very good performances, so I think they absolutely could do that on Golden Guardians. However, I did deduct a half point as I feel like the strong personalities, particularly of Froggen, Contracts, and Hauntzer, may cause some internal trouble if things start going badly. So they have a player rating of 7.1, player style 0, coaching 0.5, communication 0.5, clutchness 0.5, experience 0.75 with a minus 0.5 bonus, which brought the total to 8 points. Coming in at 5th place as the first of many teams with a similar point total, we have Counterlogic Gaming with 13.25 points. They have a roster of Darshan in the top lane, Wiggly in the jungle, Power of Evil at mid, Stixxay at AD carry, and Bifrost at support. And I think that points of time they could use both Fallen Bandit in the top lane and Moon in the jungle. And in fact, it looks like they may actually be starting Fallen Bandit in the first week in the top lane over Darshan. Now, they have a high focus mid to go along with a low focus bot and a high ganking jungler, which I think is a solid strategy for success. However, they need to establish a secondary carry in the top lane, which is what Darshan is if he's playing well, but it seems like he's struggling right now. But I think if they can properly incorporate a secondary carry top lane, then they could have a really good mix of player styles. Their coach is Weldon. He's helped elevate CLG, TSM, and G2 to a higher level of play in the past, helping them all win championships and do well internationally, at least for G2 and CLG after he was there. And he also has Irene to help him with strategy. CLG has struggled with shot calling last year, so improving their communication should be a top priority. I think they didn't have a clear shot caller. They struggled with who was going to be tasked with what. I think they somewhat figured it out by the end of the year, but clearly not to a lot of success. And I think with the new members now, they might struggle, but if they can get over the communication troubles, I think they can be a much better team. Power of Evil, Stixxay, and Bifrost have experience winning, and Power of Evil and Stixxay specifically have stepped up in big games in the past and in some international tournaments in the past. Though for Stixxay, it's been a while, And as a fun fact, they had the second best goal differential at 15 with plus 277 of teams in the LCS last summer. So I gave CLG a player rating of 10.75, a player style of 1.5, coaching of 1.5, communication of 0, clutchness of 0.5, experience of 0.5, and no bonus, which brought their total to 13.25. Coming in just ahead of them at 4th is Cloud9 with 13.5 points. Cloud9 has Licorice in the top lane, Svenskeren in the jungle, Niski in mid, Sneaky at AD carry, and Zazel at support. I think they will also make use of Blabber in the jungle and Golden Glue in mid. They lack a primary carry as far as I'm concerned, but should look to play around a strong top jungle with a more supportive bot side, which I think is still a decent way to play, but I'm just not entirely sure how well they're going to be able to succeed without that hard carry in Jetson in the mid lane. Their coach is Reapered, and in my opinion, Reapered is the best all-around coach in the LCS. He manages to consistently give his team advantages that other teams don't have, and help in almost every aspect that you'd want a coach to help in. As the team only changed out one player from their roster last year, they should maintain the solid communication they had built over the course of last year, which I think could definitely be an advantage for them. The only player they lost is Jensen, and the only player they brought in of the 7 that might play is Niski, and the other 6 were on the team last year. While some of the members of the team are relatively new to the scene, mainly Licorice and Blabber, Cloud9 has always managed to step up for the big games over any other team in North America, at least on a consistent basis. As a fun fact, they had the best goal differential at 15 at plus 771 of teams in the LCS last summer. So that's actually significantly ahead of CLG, who we just talked about as having the second best. So I gave Cloud9 a player rating of 9.55, a player style of 0.5, coaching of 2, communication of 1, clutchness of 1.5, and experience of 0.5 with no bonus, brought their total to 13.5 points, which was almost good enough for 3rd place, and 3rd place is actually TSM, who also had 13.5 points. However, when I looked at their point totals before I had scaled them, TSM's were actually higher, even though they rounded to the same 0.25, TSM are in the tiebreaker. So they're coming in at 3rd place with a roster of Broken Blade in the top lane, Acadian in the jungle, Bjergsen at mid, Sven at AD carry, and Smoothie at support. And obviously, Greg is supposed to be their starting jungler, but as for now, Acadian's going to be their starting jungler, so I assume they'll both get time at some point in time in the split. If Broken Blade is able to succeed as a carry on TSM, then I think they have a very strong team across the board who can use their jungle mid pressure to help create advantages in the side lanes, sort of focusing on getting Sven ahead, helping him scale into his late game, and getting Broken Blade snowballed into being a solid threat using Bjergsen's strong roaming, and Acadian or Grig hopefully having some smart pathing. The coach is Zix, and Zix has a reputation in the scene as being a super cerebral coach, and while I think he certainly brings a lot to the table, he also has a tendency to make some questionable decisions at times. So while he can win your team games some of the time, he can also lose your team some games some of the time. TSM has a good mix of experienced players and relatively newer players. Between Smoothie and Bjergsen, they should be able to run into no communication problems and avoiding some of the hiccups that a lot of teams with a few newer players would have. I added a half a point in addition to full clutchness points, as there's something about the TSM culture and the sort of culture of Bjergsen being on the team that generates wins even when it seems like things are going badly, and I just felt like that wasn't fully represented in the points, but I would have been remiss to not include it, so I added it in as a bonus. So they have a player rating of 9.6, player style of 1, coaching of 1, communication of 1, clutchness of 1.5, experience of 0.5, with an extra 0.5, brings the total to 13.5, and a slightly higher 13.5 than Cloud9, so they slide into 3rd place. Coming in 2nd place is 100 Thieves with 14 points. They have Someday in the top lane, Anda in the jungle, Huhi at mid, Bang and AD carry, and Aframu at support. They have strong laners across the board, and pre-existent Aframu-Huhi synergy should be a big help to their ability to play as a team and their ability to synergize together quickly. They may struggle with resource allocation though, as all their players like a decent share of the resources. They sort of have a team full of almost secondary carries who like a decent chunk of the resources but aren't usually primary carries, so it'll be interesting to see how they go about managing who gets what. Their coach is Prawley, and I think Prawley has been one of the better coaches for a while now, both in Europe and in North America. He seems to be a real player's coach, obviously having been a player himself. I assume that plays a factor into it, who abuses his strengths and the way he likes to play the game to get good results. Having Afremu on the team makes 100 Thieves one of the best teams when it comes to communication, as he's probably the best shot caller in North America and maybe even in the West, especially when he's put in a position to lead, which I think he will be on this team. While they have yet to win anything, 100 Thieves is full of experienced players who know how to win at the highest level. All of Afremu, Bang, and Someday, and even Huhi on CLG have made it to decently high highs before, so I think that's going to help them out for sure. And I added a half a point as I think Afremu is able to raise the bar on his team's performance level in a way that most other players cannot. So in addition to strong communication, I think just that presence of the real leadership that Afremu brings, I think adds something else that I felt like I had to add in there. So 100 Thieves has a player rating of 10.05, player styles of 1, coaching of 1, communication of 1.5, clutchness of 1, experience of 0.75 with a 0.5 point bonus, brought the total to 14, which was not quite good enough for first place. And first place, actually by a few points, was none other than Team Liquid with 16.75 points, which is a crazy high total. They have a roster of Impact in the top lane, Xmithy in the jungle, Jensen in mid, Doublelift in AD carry, and Core JJ in support. There's a pretty clear divide between the high focus players of Doublelift and Jensen and more supportive players of Impact and Xmithy. Their only real hurdle is going to be Doublelift and Jensen having to adapt to not being the sole primary focus of their team as they were last year. Their coach is Kane, who played a role in Team Liquid winning both splits last year, although I don't think he's quite as proven as some of the other top NA coaches and maybe lacks in areas that there might be slightly better in. He still knows how to coach a successful team. By keeping the main voices of the team in Xmithy and Doublelift, TL should have no problem adapting to communication with the two new members. I don't think it's really going to shift the communication dynamic a lot, and if anything, it just might help it, as I'm sure both Jensen and Core JJ were somewhat important in the communication in their teams that they were on. Adding a world champion and a world semi-finalist to an already champion caliber team makes Team Liquid the most experienced team in the LCS. I think basically every player is one of the most, if not the most experienced player in their position in the league. They're filled with players that accomplished impressive feats, although as a team they haven't shown up internationally yet, but individually they definitely have gotten there. And as a fun fact, they had the fastest average game time, 32.2 minutes, of any team in the LCS last summer, so I gave them a player rating of 12.75, player styles of 1.5, coaching of 1.5, communication of 1, clutchness of 1, experience of 1 with no bonus, brought the total to 16.75, and earned them the top spot on my team's power rankings. Thank you everybody for watching, and as some quick predictions before I head off, I have the regular season champions being 100 Thieves, being the team that has the highest record in the regular season and finishes with the #1 seed. And I have the playoff champions and the team going to MSI as being Team Liquid. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad you stuck with me through all the different player power rankings and now the team power rankings. I hope you continue to tune in. I'll have plenty more down the pipeline. I'm going to be doing some preview videos before every LCS game day where I attempt to predict the winner of each game. And I'm going to continue my Dragon's Digit series with another exciting topic. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.